Hello. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Howdy,
how's
howdy.
everybody doing?
Not all at once. Thanks for taking the time. If you're joining us, say hi in the comments. So what are we going to do today? We'll talk about Kagent. So Kagent is an open source framework for DevOps and platform engineers that allows you to run AI agents in Kubernetes and enabling you to automate complex operations and troubleshoot tasks. So I'm seeing a lot of people already saying hi in the comments. So we have someone from Boston. Who else is from Boston around here? Someone is. I know that.
Me.
All right. Yeah. Someone from Munich. Perfect. All right. So I'm Peter. I've worked on Kagent as well, together with Eitan, Keith, Christian, and other guys and people from Solo. Keith, Eitan, Christian, do you guys want to introduce yourself, or how are we going to do this?
No, Christian, you go first.
Oh, I was just saying hi. That was my intro.
All right, well then I'll go. Hi, I'm Eitan. I'm the lead developer on Kagent. Been at Solo for like 6 years, so love technology, love talking about tech, love dealing with it. So just happy to be here.
Who else? Keith?
Are you really sticking with that as your intro, Christian? Okay,
All
I'll
right,
let you-
hi.
all right.
I'm Christian Postug, Level Field CTO here at Solo. I've been here for 6 years, over 6 years, about the same time as Eitan. I don't want to one-up him. But yeah, I've been working on AI stuff and service mesh and networking and platform engineering stuff for quite a long time. Involved in open source projects and pretty excited about this one.
Hey, I'm Keith Babbo. I lead the product organization here at Solo. I've been here about 3.5 years. So a rookie compared to Christian and Eitan. I actually, before this, I worked at Red Hat for like 12 years, and I recognized someone that's joined us. Hello, Jakob, that I used to work with actually at Red Hat. So great it's a small community after all. Yeah, so happy to be here. Looking forward to talking about this. Like it's crazy momentum that this project has picked up in such a short time that I think really speaks to the need in the Kubernetes community and the ecosystem for this type of framework. So really looking forward to jumping in and talking to folks about it.
All right. I just want to mention briefly, I know I posted the Discord link, but it's kind of hard to click on it and everything. So the easiest way, if you want to get involved and like join the conversation, is just to go to kagent.dev, and we have all the links there. We have links to the Discord community, links to the GitHub, documentation, all the information on how to get started and how to get involved in this project. Also, before we start, I think, Keith, you're going to go first, and you're going to talk about what Kagent is, what is the vision and all. And for everyone watching, if you have any questions, feel free to ask as we're talking through this and all that, and we'll try to answer questions as we go. And if there's more questions at the end, we can answer them at the end as well. So, all right.
Yeah.
Keith, are you ready?
Yeah, now's the time we test how much people really want to hear about this, because I'm going to attempt to bore everyone to death with slides, and then before we get to the good stuff of seeing it in action. So let's see what happens here. All right, and let me share my screen here.
To share something.
And let me reverse this. Hold on one second. I went into some weird presentation mode here, and all right, cool. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right, let me know if you see. Do you see the Kagent slide or my taxes? Which do you see, Peter? All right. So that's if you're in the US, it's that time of year. All right. All right. Let's go in. As Peter mentioned, it's this isn't really a long. I was just kidding. This isn't really a long slide, but like giving us some grounding in the context of like what agents look like on Kubernetes. Why would we even do this in the first place? An introduction to Kagent itself. If you have questions, please ask in the chat, and Peter and others will interrupt me and we'll discuss them live. And then, of course, to my esteemed colleagues, feel free to jump in and interrupt and correct me at any point. So let's start with a baseline here. When we talk about Kagent, the agent part of Kagent, like what are agents all about? What do they look like? At least my simplified view of an agent sort of looks like this. At the center, like at the core of any agent is an LLM, right? That's actually performing the reasoning. But the LLM alone is not enough for an agent. There are some very important integration points and inputs to that LLM that actually make it execute in the context of an agent, all right? And not all of these things are required. In many agents, you'll have like all 4 of these things, but in some meaningful and very useful agents, you'll have a subset of these things. But let's just quickly talk about them because that will help you and orient you towards what Kagent as a framework is really helping with when you're building agents and deploying them to Kubernetes. So first and foremost, when we think about an agent, all agents will execute against a task or a goal, okay? In many cases, that will be a client application or a user interacting with that agent and giving it a directive. I want you to do X, basically, right? Not how to do that, perform that task, but you're giving it a goal or a target, and then the LLM is going to kick in and do its reasoning and basically do its make a best effort attempt at satisfying that outcome or that goal. Now, what's interesting is that even though the user, the client application is providing that goal, when you're creating the agent, in almost all circumstances, the person that created the agent, and I deliberately said agent creator here and not developer, because what we're seeing is that certainly many agents are built and bound together with code, but they actually don't have to be, right? If you have a very, direct and strong system prompt for your agent, many times that could basically be the structure and definition of your agent in combination with a user or client input. So kind of think about 2 things here. There's when we are defining like a goal and strategy for an agent, there's the user and client provided context. And then the person that created that agent is also providing some additional context that's guardrails and sort of the structure in which that agent will operate. Now, once those inputs are accounted for, the LLM is going to do its thing and do some advanced reasoning. And in the context of doing that advanced reasoning, it's going to need some additional inputs at its disposal. But unlike these top 2 where the users are giving this input, the LLM is now deciding where it needs to get data or how it needs to act. No agent that's really going to be useful is going to be able to execute in isolation. It is almost always going to have to interact with this environment in one or more ways, all right? One way, talking about memory here, is specifically when you have an agent that is living for a longer period of time or dealing with a sufficiently large domain of data that all that context can't fit in its context window at a given time. And so it needs to basically offload that to external storage and then pull from that memory. So think of a project-oriented agent that's executing over days or weeks and has many, many interactions, not just with tools and available context, but maybe many interactions with a user and follow-ups and this type of thing and certain state transitions. All of that context over that execution time is not necessarily going to fit inside the context window for the LLM. So it needs to offload that into memory. You have Pinecone and Redis and Weave8 and Quadrant, a bunch of other projects that support that as a vector store. More importantly, from our standpoint, that's important, right? But I would say that if you have a short-lived agent, you might not need to offload all of your context might fit in your context window. I would say in almost all agents that are doing anything useful, you are interacting with one or more tools. And these tools can be APIs, they can be databases, they can be file systems, it could be a GitHub repo, Kubernetes itself, all the tools, as we'll hear about in a moment, in Kubernetes that maybe platform engineers and developers use in the context of using Kubernetes and deploying to Kubernetes are also examples of tools that the LLM will be using to either query the state of the environment or maybe even enacting some change, right, and mutating that environment. All of that happens through this tool integration. Peter, Eitan, Christian, anything to add there? Does that make sense?
No, that makes sense.
It makes sense. I would say that's where the magic is, right? That's where the agent can actually do stuff.
Yeah.
And so giving it tools, thinking about what those tools are, how they should be implemented, that's what gives the agent its special powers.
I love that, because I actually think that, like, I wonder if we can kind of tilt this on an axis, because I think when you look at the potential of an agent basically to do something useful, I would say that it actually pivots on two things. One is the tools that it has available to it and how powerful that tools are, and maybe what the LLM is authorized to do through that tools chain, basically, right? And also probably this context that the agent creator created. Like if you mess up this context, it's going to severely limit, right, what that agent can actually do. But those, like as you described, this is where the rubber meets the road, and to do anything useful, it's going to happen through this tools layer.
Or like you were saying, if the context could severely limit what the agent can do, or it makes it limitless, which is could be a problem both for accuracy and security. Right?
Yes, right. Because if the like we've seen this even in what we've done in the agents that we've developed, that when you start to add too many tools and too much scope to an agent, it kind of confuses and waters down the agent, right? And ultimately the outcomes are not as powerful or accurate.
Yeah.
One thing that I saw in the way that I was building these things when I was playing around is to try to start very, very narrow and then slowly like add one more tool, add another tool, right? And then maybe expand the instruction, add some more instructions on how to basically adding some sort of guardrails in the instructions and in context, right? So that it stays within that almost, right? Know that there's like those are like soft guardrails, right? Because you can always trick the so we have one question that came in is LinkedIn user would love to hear about the security of Kagent. Curious to understand the auth and ODC model used by the LLM tool use feature and how it respects existing Kubernetes best practices. Eitan, do you want to take that one? Let me just see. You have to unmute yourself because I can't unmute you. No? Yes? We can't hear you, Eitan.
Eitan
is loading.
Oh, I bet you he probably had to change his browser. I wonder if he had to change his setting there to enable access. So let me pop off just with a little bit, and then it'll be interesting. When Eitan rejoins, he can fact check me, and maybe it'll be like it's totally something totally different. But the two things that jump to mind, Christian, for me is one, when we get later in the talk, we'll talk about how we've defined multiple interfaces to the agent framework, right? Like the UI, the CLI, but also the CRD interface, right? Which is more Kubernetes native API for most people. And what we've seen with all of the projects that we work on is how powerful the RBAC can be, and the concept of RBAC for multi-tenancy and multiple roles when dealing with those CRDs. And so you can get some level of maybe separation of responsibilities and access to that CRD layer. And then the other thing that we saw is these LLMs, when they're talking to tools, there's a really interesting sort of two camps, let's say, right? One is the user account context that's invoking the agent relevant to the tool's execution of its goal, right? So imagine I'm a GitHub user and I want to use this agent to do something, and I wanted to do it in the context of my GitHub account. Then that would be an example of something we support where we can flow through that auth context all the way to the tool provider, right? But there are other scenarios where, as a platform team, you're providing access to multiple users to shared services. And in that scenario, what you want to do is actually do an auth mapping, where we basically have an authorization context in the agent, between the agent and the tool, and we can bridge that from the user client to the agent. So kind of like doing a auth bridging or mapping. Did Eitan rejoin or?
Yeah, he's here. I'm curious to hear what he has to say.
Sorry, yeah, my I usually use Safari and it doesn't support StreamYard, so here we are. Firefox crashed on me, but it auto updated, so I think we're okay now. Yeah, I mean, so basically, I think this is a really interesting question. And actually, so we're Kagent is built almost entirely on a framework out of Microsoft called AutoGen. For those of you who've heard of it, and this is actually a conversation happening more broadly in the community right now, and in the AutoGen community. And I think that it's really important because, like, unlike traditional systems, right? These systems act much more autonomously, but simultaneously. So there's a line to be drawn about whether, do you want this thing acting as a workload, or do you want this thing acting on behalf of the user? And like Keith said, I think that there are reasons to do both. For example, right, if you are thinking about like traditional workloads, right? If you're a user and you're performing some sort of action on a database or whatever, right, you want to be that user. You want the database to understand that is you, right, to do the authentication. But at the same time, if you have a long-running task or some sort of machine, right, that you want talking to that service, and you want it to be authenticated as that machine. And I think it's the same thing here. If you have a user kicking off some sort of flow, then yeah, you probably want to make sure that that user has access to all of the services, right, that the agent is potentially using if it's acting on behalf of the user, right? I think that's sort of, and on behalf of is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. So I think that it's definitely an interesting emerging field, an emerging area, right? And I think it's also going to come down to how different organizations think about security, and how different governmental organizations think about it as time moves forward.
Yeah. Also, another related question. I didn't want to cut you off, but related to security, how is it going to manage? Can it integrate with Kubernetes secrets as a way to manage credentials? When a server needs OAuth, how do you plan to integrate versus agents that are API key type ones?
Yeah, so I'll answer that. So I think that there's actually there's like two different questions. Actually, probably three different questions in there, right? I'll answer your first question in terms of Kubernetes secret. Yeah, there's direct access. Not direct access. That's not true. There's programmatic API access to Kubernetes secrets in order to authenticate your LLM calls. So yes, absolutely, right? Like, this is a Kubernetes native platform. That's right. We want to make sure that it feels like using any other Kubernetes native framework experience, right? You're building agents on Kubernetes. So yes, absolutely, you should be able to take advantage of secrets. Another thing you bring up there, right, is authenticating to right, when those authentication flows are more complicated. And I think that there are a number of potential paths there. As an example, another project that solo.io has contributed a lot to is a project called Kgateway, which has an AI gateway functionality, which allows you which will perform the authentication to the LLMs for you, right? And so I think that gets back to what Keith was talking about off mapping, right? And that way you keep the individual pieces of your system a little bit more separate, right? So you handle the authentication in your egress gateway, and then you handle the agentic core, right, in your agent framework. But at the same time, right, if the community decides that they want that sort of functionality built in, right, then I think that's also totally fine, and those libraries exist. And so it really entirely depends on the specific service you're talking about, how you want to authenticate to it, right? Are you talking about Google and their workload identity, or are you talking about AWS? Right? Or are you talking, so the answer is it so depends. And I think that we want to enable people to work how they want, and also two, how their different organizational bodies run things. So there's a number of things at play, but yeah, we definitely have thought about this a lot. And I think that there's a number of good ways forward.
So Eitan, either you're trying to open up a piece of candy that's wrapped.
I know, right? I'm like, when is this candy bar going to be open?
You just can't get it open, or maybe it's your hoodie on your rubbing against microphones on your headphones.
Right,
No,
yes.
I think that's.
Oh, that was it. I actually, Keith, I like briefly muted you and Christian to just check who was it from.
Oh, we knew.
And
We
I'm
knew
like,
it was.
oh,
No,
okay.
I was like, I
puzzled.
really
What
want him
if
to
I
get to that
also
candy.
had a Hershey's right here.
So, by the way, on this, I would say like this is a great question and something that like it's even evidenced by like how long Eitan and I were going on our answers on it. Like we've thought about it a lot and we've hit it a lot. And I would encourage you, like in our Discord channel, if you want to go deeper on this topic, just hit us up in the Discord channel, and we're happy to discuss specific examples or anything that you want to go deeper on. We're happy to talk there as well.
Yeah, and we also have like a lot of like feature enhancements and issues already logged in the GitHub repo, right? For like different things, different areas, feature areas. So join Discord or add your thoughts to the GitHub repo as well. So yeah. All right. I don't believe for 1 second that Eitan lives in that room.
Go play the piano. Show him what's up, Eitan.
Rude. Damn.
Yes, this is getting spicy. This is what we want
I
in the
don't,
live
I don't
stream.
go around telling
All
y'all
right.
where you probably live and don't live.
All right, here we go. So that's slide
Hey,
one.
that's more like it.
Complete.
I
Okay.
live in a brick wall.
So when we think about, so we talked about those are the fundamentals of agents and like the ingredients, let's say, right? So now let's think about like, where do we run these agents? And from our standpoint, we already know that like Kubernetes absolutely as a platform, like the go-to for inferencing today, has been for ML ops for quite a while now. So when we look at agents and, again, at its core, pretty simple. It's an LLM running with some environmental interaction, right? There's a lot of benefits that Kubernetes itself provides as an agentic platform and as an agentic infrastructure, right? You have a declarative API. So like your system prompts that govern the actual agent execution, all of the configuration and wiring to tools and this type of thing, all can go in declarative config that's checked in with Git. So now you have all your deterministic roll forward, roll back, all the things that we love from a platform standpoint about Kubernetes overall. And let's be honest, in a world of LLMs, you're in a world of non-determinism. The more determinism that you can build around that, the better. And then all that interaction between agents and tools and agents and like the traffic control of how we're wiring up those tools to agents and having agents talk to one another, what the orchestration of those components look like, if we're going to scale them, right? Like a long-lived agent that's taking more traffic is going to need to be able to dynamically scale up and scale down. You're not going to be sitting there pressing a button like, oh, my queue depth for this agent starting to get kind of high. Let's move it up, right? We need that dynamism that's built into Kubernetes for a while to use for scaling LLMs and agents as well. And then certainly, I mean, it was a big topic already, securing like the context around who can interact with this agent, right? If I have an agent that has the keys to the kingdom and is super, super powerful, I certainly want to be careful about who is authorized to actually use that agent. I probably want to make sure that I don't have like an implicit trust idea here where like an attacker can get inside my network and then start invoking tools or agents or listening to their communication. So I want zero trust behind the scenes and this type of thing. And last but not least, I talked about non-determinism. We give an agent a goal. We don't know. The LLM decides and does the reasoning to actually determine how to accomplish that goal. If there's a bad outcome or maybe a suboptimal outcome from executing an agent, how am I explaining and debugging what the process was that agent followed so that I can turn around and give feedback and fine tune? I know that's an overloaded term in this space, but like, how can I basically tune that agent to behave in a more optimal way, right? And really, you can look at maybe like, chain of thought reasoning within the agent or within the LLM itself, but it's not just self-contained in the agent. You're going to want to look at these tool interactions and agent-to-agent interactions to fully debug that. And observability that you capture in the network in Kubernetes with metrics tracing and logging can do exactly that. So really, it checks a lot of boxes in what you'll want in the surrounds of an agent infrastructure, just in Kubernetes itself and the technologies that are available to you there.
Yeah, one other thing that I would like to add there, it goes like with the observability in a way, is the ability to actually test the agents as well,
Yep.
right? To get like some baseline so you know that it's performing well, you can observe it, and then what happens if the model changes? What happens if I change the tools, if I add more tools, if I change the instructions maybe, right? So you also need a way to do that.
100%. Okay, so now we said, okay, why is Kubernetes a great platform for agents? So we just talked through that. But also, let's look at the flip side of that coin. Why are agents good for Kubernetes? All right. And we as a company have a bit of history here where, gosh, I don't know now, like 18 months or 2 years, time flies at a startup. But like at least 18 months ago, we developed this capability in our platform that's been evolving ever since, where we can look at a customer's environment where you have a ambient or a gateway installed or a sidecar-based service mesh, and we can basically look at that environment and interrogate that environment and look at like metrics and configuration, the health of the infrastructure, and all these other signals, which ultimately are a lot like tools, right? To offer advice to a user about, hey, your system is healthy or unhealthy, or you might have some security concerns here, or this configuration is not aligned to best practice, right? All of these types of signals, which were really built into effectively like a rule engine that we created that interpreted these signals. And we started to think about how we could evolve that, right? We're constantly feeding back experience from our teams, helping customers get to production of evolving that, right? And what we see in the wild. But we felt that like what we're seeing with agents and how they're emerging and how capable LLMs are becoming, of like that insights engine should be an agent, right? And as we started to sort of open that up and think through that deeply, we started to develop not only a lot of specific use cases for how agents and tools can interact, but as we started to implement those agents, we realized that there was actually a repeatable pattern here, how most people will want to develop agents. And ultimately, that led to us announcing this project called Kagent. The goal of this project is based on our own experiencing developing agents on Kubernetes. We realize this is a scalable pattern for anyone that's developing an agent on Kubernetes. And so we wanted to get this out in the community and have other users in this ecosystem also contribute tools and agents, but also make it simpler for them to develop agents themselves. So I'll just really, I mentioned we kind of have this multi-layered sort of architecture approach that consists of basically a tools layer, an agent layer, and a framework. So I'll briefly go into those, and then I think we're going to transition into maybe some more, technical details with Eitan and Christian. So
I think, but I just want to highlight that with what we thought through is how do we take, because we built up so much expertise here at Solo around networking and Istio and troubleshooting some of that stuff, and in our insights engine, the way we were thinking about it is how do we make that expertise more accessible to more people, right? Because we're only a certain number of people here at Solo, but if you can build that expertise and allow people to leverage it beyond just the people here at this company, then that's extremely powerful. And what we've built with Kagent is here's a framework and patterns for people to go build their own expert engines or their expert agents that can then also scale out. But so yeah, I think that's an important concept that you just touched on.
Yeah, totally. No, that's I love that. I like what you added there. All right, so like going through each layer, at the bottom we talked about the importance of tools. Agents aren't really doing a lot unless they're interacting with tools, so the tools layer is very important. In Kagent, we built a number of tools that integrate with the technologies that most people are using on Kubernetes itself. So we started with our own use cases here, right? And so like Prometheus, Istio, Helm, Argo, Kubernetes. Actually missing from here is do we have a Grafana tool? I thought we did as well. Am I missing that from here?
Yeah. We do.
All right. And so like, think of these as like, we're us bootstrapping this community and building the tools that for the agents we're creating that we needed, but also we think are useful for anybody developing sort of DevOps or platform focused agents. And ultimately, we're hoping that, you know, the community itself will actually start building and adding to these tools. Now, there's no reason to think that these are the only tools you're going to need, right? Or maybe that even over the length of time, it may be that these projects start producing their own tools, right? Which is totally fine. And why, from the ground up, we built this on an MCP compatible layer of tools. So MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. If you're not familiar with it, Anthropic last year introduced this specification, recognizing the need in the market when applications or agents are interacting with tools, right? The LLM is doing function calling to accomplish some goal. There was really no standard protocol, right? There was normally just accomplished via like structured inputs and outputs, but it left off a lot of other details around things like discovery and a whole bunch of other details that you would generally have to cook into a bespoke integration for that function. So Anthropic came along and said, hey, here's actually a standard protocol that any application or agent can use to talk to any tool. And that Model Context Protocol community and spec has like really taken off. And to the point where there's hundreds, like on the official server repo, there's like hundreds of them. If you go look at some like, you know, like curated lists, there's like thousands of MCP tool servers out there. And keep in mind that every tool server can host multiple tools. So now we're talking about, you know, tens of thousands now, and likely going to be hundreds of thousands. You know, I think millions is a reasonable number in the community eventually. And so like a very rich ecosystem for tooling. So the tools layer in Kagent comes with sort of batteries included of key tools that you'd want to use, but also supports extending with any MCP compatible tool server that you want to add. So if you're developing an agent with Kagent, you have our tools to use, but any other MC compatible tool server as well. So that was the tools layer, but what about the agents? So we actually ship a number of sample agents out of the box. If these fit your needs, you know, take them, use them, run them. If they're open, so like if you want to tweak them and evolve them, you know, do that. Issue a PR, come back to the community, talk about how you're evolving them. Or if you want to use them as a baseline of how you're developing your own agents, all of these are totally reasonable things to do with this layer. We really focused on the core platform tasks, like a platform engineer, an SRE, or a developer who would normally interact with one of those team members wants to accomplish that, does not have that expertise, right? Does not have maybe the ops or platform engineering background, but wants to understand maybe how to do a blue-green deployment or secure the network between application calls, or they want to securely expose their application outside the cluster. These are all things that they might actually go to a platform team member originally, is kind of a low value sort of interaction for that platform team member. What they'd really like to do is just enable that user to like kind of do it on their own. And that's exactly what agents can provide, right? They can allow the platform teams to focus on the really gnarly issues or building more value in the platform as a product, and delegating these sort of knowledge transfer and routine sort of tasks to an automated sort of agent that interacts with developers. So in any case, the categories of things we did initially, certainly around deployment. So I want to, you know, install, uninstall, or upgrade some component or application in my Kubernetes cluster. Observability. So I actually want to ask questions about the health or performance of a service, look at golden signals, like create a dashboard. All these things are things that agents can help with. I want to secure the perimeter of my network ingress, right? Or I want to actually secure service-to-service interactions. All of that can be done via an agent. If I want to start playing around with like blue, green, canary, A/B type of deployment methodologies, this can be confusing. Like platform teams know how to do this, right? Application development teams aren't well-versed in maybe some of the core fundamental tools that are at their disposal, like Argo rollouts for doing this. And an agent can help assist those developers in the necessarily sort of resources and processes and instrumentation they're going to need to enable those advanced rollout strategies. And then finally, the super common one of like, I have a question or a problem about my application or service in Kubernetes. Can you help me, like, with understanding of the environment, start to debug this and resolve and remediate this issue? So again, these are agents we ship out of the box that are available for you, but really use those as a starting point as you begin your agent journey. Leverage them, extend them, build your own agents. Speaking of building your own agents, the framework that we defined, the process we were using to develop our own tools and frameworks, it's just as useful for anyone else developing their own tools and frameworks. So that is also a part of Kagent. As Eitan mentioned earlier, Kagent extends, at its core, is using AutoGen as its agentic framework, but it takes AutoGen as sort of a platform neutral technology by design and purpose and fits it for purpose inside of Kubernetes. We implemented a Kubernetes controller that basically integrates AutoGen as a native component of Kubernetes and exposes it through 3 primary interfaces: a UI, where you can just point and click your way through a UI and find new agents, integrate tools, interact with agents; a CLI that has the same capabilities, and then that declarative API as CRDs for defining and deploying agents and tools. All of that inside the core Kagent framework to help you get started and interact with Kagent as a framework. All right, so I'll stop sharing now. That was our quick overview, a quick 42-minute overview. Any questions before we move on to the next part?
Yeah, I think one was, but you already answered that. Someone asked about MCP and all that, and yep, it was answered. We are using MCP, and you can bring your own MCP tools and or servers to use them with Kagent, right? So, yeah, there's no other questions as of now. So I don't know, Christian, do you want to jump into the demo? And
Sure.
Oh, actually, there is a question.
Let's have a question. Oh boy.
There you go. Let's read through it. All right. So, elaborating on Christian's comment about the knowledge base Solo has developed, wouldn't this knowledge be better captured as a source for a rack component to augment existing foundation models, or if the investment is justified, fine-tune a foundational model with the Solo knowledge base? This would make the knowledge more accessible to other agentic frameworks. Obviously, Solo can continue productizing Kagent with tools and agent logic, providing the business value Keith is discussing.
Well,
yeah. So
Hugo hit it on the head.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question. But so there's like some of the expertise that we've been able to capture is knowledge base, right? This is what we've learned. This is, but one thing that isn't captured, or can have so many different permutations, is, for example, I want to, why is pod A not talking to pod B? And and historically we would set up run books. Oh, well, you go do this, you do this, whatever. But with the agentic framework like this, we can, usually the first step is go check the logs. Let's go check the logs, and then let's figure out what's in the logs and make a decision based on what's in the logs, right? We might not know ahead of time what are the 100 possible different things that the logs could say, but if we're able to go inspect what's in the environment, try to understand and make decisions based on what's in the environment, that will give us a faster path to resolution than, well, we've written down 1 million steps that maybe some of them will work. So I think the framework is more about trying to level set, trying to understand, and then bring expertise. That was the point that I said. Like, you give this problem to Eitan, he's going to know how to figure it out because he's got lots of experience doing that. And he's not going to just follow a document that says, hey, go run this command, go run this command, go run this command. He's going to look into the environment and try to understand, okay, what is the next thing I should go check? And just having a knowledge base isn't sufficient for that.
Can I jump in quick? Yeah. Also, so I think Christian is 100% right. I agree with what you said. And I think that sort of like deduction is one of the main things that makes this sort of inference AI so powerful. But I do just on the, I do think it's very interesting what you said about, basically fine-tuning foundational models and bringing knowledge bases. And we actually have a set of knowledge bases that we ship with the product. So we have a tool. I believe we're open source. I don't want to confirm, but we have a tool that basically slurps that basically slurps open source documentation websites and creates SQLite databases for them, so that our system or any other system can have access to it. I think at a higher level, right? Like there's other data that we haven't gotten around to doing that sort of thing with, but it's something that we're definitely interested in. I agree with you. And in terms of like long term, right? Like having a foundational model that could be really good at just these tasks is also a really cool idea. But yeah, so in general, like we ship with a bunch. There's a tool that we have called the docs tool, and essentially it ships with a bunch of those a bunch of those, and we would love also, I think we're open sourcing the tool that does that. And so as time goes on, we would love for more and more open source documentation to be added there, and potentially, Kagent can be a hub, as well as a hub for building agents. It can be a hub for documentation, for embedded documentation, for RAG, yeah. And so I think that is definitely a big part of what's happening here, because like we're talking about, these tools, they don't, or these agents don't understand Kubernetes, right? They understand how to reason through things. So we need to give them the ability, the knowledge to reason through Kubernetes tasks. And then there are a couple more questions before we get to it. So Chris, first of all, how you doing? You can pronounce it however you want. Honestly, it's like kubectl, kubectl. You're all wrong. It's just it's a CLI, But yeah, we call it Kagent, but Kagent's cool too. So yeah. And then,
it is not Mad Max Thunderdome, where one agent enters or two agents enter and one agent leaves. It is all agents are welcome.
It's a Kagent match.
Yeah.
And then Thiago, I think it's a good question. If Kagent already supports MCP, why build tools outside MCP? Honestly, from here on out, we are going, like, the plan is to develop all of our tools in MCP. We specifically didn't with some of our base tools only because it made debugging our initial product easier. That's it. Like, I wish I had a better, deeper answer for you, but like having all the code running in the same process made the iteration faster. But we agree with you. Assuming everything is MCP, everything should be MCP. So we absolutely plan to do that.
And that might already be in the code, right? Aren't our tools exposed?
Yeah. You can run all of our tools as MCP today.
Like we were saying before, like in an ideal world, right? The agent or the tool layer of Kagent is just pluggable and interoperates. Like let me rephrase that. When we started on this, we had some very specific outcomes we wanted to see, and our expectations of interacting with these agents and how useful they were to people interacting with them, right? To do that, as Eitan mentioned, we wanted to deeply understand how the tool layer was constructed so we could achieve those outcomes, right? Now, when we look to scale this, because we can't go write tools on our own, we don't want to do that for all of the CNCF ecosystem. We want to use the tools that other people develop, right? And so I think this next evolution is going to be two things. One is starting to basically look to swap if like there's a suitable MCP tool server out there, either using our own, which we've wrapped in MCP, so the community is welcome to it. It's open source, right? Or if there's another one in the community, we use that instead, start to incorporate that. And I honestly think there's also one of the things that Eitan mentioned is the debuggability, right? And understanding like, hey, how does this tool server need to be improved? Because your agent's only going to be as good as the tools it interacts with, right? And those tools are broken, then no bueno for the agent.
Yep.
Cool. We got a little bit of time here.
Oh,
You know
we have
what I'm sensing?
all the time in the world.
What I'm sensing, Christian, is that so I don't want to do like a rug pull here where we don't do a demo and we said we're going to do a demo. So, but like maybe like so you're not rushed. Maybe we preview something and then we do another follow-up stream session, Peter, maybe, right? Where we go.
Yeah.
I mean, we should show something, right?
No. We have to. I'm saying we should definitely show. I don't want to rush Christian because there's a lot to show. And so like, I think what we can do is say like, hey, you know, the thing we're talking about, it's real. You can pick it up and use it. Christian's going to demonstrate that. But then also like, I think we could really marinate in another session about like some of the other cool stuff we're doing.
Can you see my screen?
Love the word marinate.
Marinate.
So
making me hungry.
Well,
yeah, but that works. Yeah, we could. I mean, we're just a note on the code base and everything. It's very in flux. A lot of things are changing. A lot of new stuff is being added. New features are being constantly added. Right. KubeCon is happening next week, so if anyone watching is going to be there, stop by our booth. Anytime we'll do a demo for you, ask any questions, etc. But then yeah, we should definitely do maybe post KubeCon do another one where we just do the like more demos, I guess.
Yeah, because you know what else, we could stack our labs in there too, right? So like we could demo something and then make the labs available and let people throw them.
Yeah, we could do that. One more question. It's a long one. So where would
should I not share my screen? Am I sharing my screen?
Oh, I can. There you go. But you'll have to make it a little bit bigger because it's.
Oh, okay.
I do think though that this question is really
get to the question. Get to the question.
Yeah. So
let me do this.
It says, where would Kagent differentiation or capability come from in the future? Today it's an intelligent tool router, and you're kind of right. So what is it? Is it RAG? Is it fine tuning? Is it decision making? Is it complex? Is it a complex framework? And so I think, first of all, it's amazing. It's such a good question. And I think that from my perspective, and I think this is generally how we're thinking about it, right? Until now, so there's really two aspects. One, again, we've talked about security and we've talked about running in Kubernetes and taking advantage of all of that. But the other thing we really believe in is the declarative framework. And so absolutely the complex orchestration, multi-agents, networked agents, workflows, those are the sorts of like higher level things we're planning on tackling. But that's like from a higher level agent orchestration, but simultaneously we're looking into like one of the things that we really want to focus on is visibility and evals. Specifically cool things like replaying, like because of how AutoGen is built and how we're interacting with it, we have the opportunity to enable really cool, really detailed replaying of agent interactions. So, you know, you have a prompt, whatever, you want to actually test if that prompt, you know, let's say you have like a 20-step interaction and step 10 has a prompt that you don't quite like, right? So how can we enable you to tweak that prompt, just that part of the prompt, and see what effect that has on the chain? And so that sort of thing, that's the place. And again, the declarative framework is so important there because we want repeatability, right? Every other framework that we've seen uses the anyway, so that's I just wanted to say, yeah, there's big plans there, but let's let Christian get to the demo because he only has 2 minutes. I could talk forever.
Oh, all right. Well, if we're trying to do it in 2 minutes, I don't know. Let's just complete the rug pull and let's schedule follow-up demos.
No demos. I promise demos to people.
All right.
Come on, Christian.
Let's do.
We can go a couple minutes over.
We can even go over, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's my entire screen? All right. You said we should increase.
We don't have to like. I like this idea of doing a follow-up. So let's just do a quick tour, like show that know it works, and then we'll do a deeper dive as a follow-up.
Okay. So, like Keith said, kagent.dev here. I can 1, 2. Kagent.dev, that's where you can get started. Like Peter said, things are rapidly evolving. We're improving things, finding issues, solving them, adding features and so on. But in the console itself, So as we can see, this is, here I'll come to, let's go here. Oh, I can maybe make that bigger. Yeah. In the Kubernetes cluster that I'm running right now, we can see we have a number of processes running, a number of namespaces, but the Kagent is running in the Kagent namespace here. And this one pod contains the Kubernetes controller, the app backend, and the UI itself. So what I'm doing is I'm just port forwarding this pod directly to my machine, and from here I can get the Kagent UI. And from this list, if we look at the agents that come out of the box, we have agents that are specialized in being able to work on Kubernetes, being able to work on Istio, which is our expertise here at Solo, and the supporting platform engineering type tasks that Keith talked about, building dashboards for system health or understanding system health, being able to do rollouts and maybe even conversion of rollouts. So what I'm going to try here real quick is what deployments do I have in book info front ends and book info back ends? Actually, let's just do back ends because we'll keep the demos short and sweet here. And so we'll ask the agent, hey, what do I have running? But it's going to use tools like querying for resources in Kubernetes. And in this case, it looks like it came back with it has a few of the Istio book info deployments running here, details, ratings, reviews, and so on. What we're going to ask it to do is, can you convert the reviews service in that namespace to an Argo rollouts? Don't apply any resources yet, just show me. Let's cross our fingers and let it think, but it's going to use the tools that it has available, in this case some of the Argo tools, and we'll see. It is able to convert this into a Argo rollout file, and I could go and apply this. But in a real system, I don't really want to do that directly. What I would like to do is actually point the rollout to the deployment and figure out a way to progressively scale up and scale down the rollout as we upgrade or migrate to an Argo rollout. So I'm going to ask it, can you refer to the deployment and specify scale down as progressive? Now, progressive is not the right value. Let's see if it figures it out. And in this case, it looks like it did. It specified the scale down correctly. It points to the reviews deployment, and it sets up the strategy for doing the rollout. So now I'm going to ask, and you can see I'm stepping over quite a few things here, but you can see here that it is talking to the various tools that it has available. Now I'm going to ask it to go ahead and apply this resource, and cross our fingers that happens as well. We see it is calling the create resource tool with, and it looks like it did get created. So now if we check the Argo rollouts UI in the book info backend namespace, we see that we do have a reviews rollout here. And if we come back here to Kubernetes, check out the backends, we see that it was just restarted. And if we look at the deployment, it's still here, but it's scaled down to 0 because now Argo rollouts is handling the deployments and upgrades and so on. And we can keep going from here, but I'll stop there.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that gives people a little bit of a taste of what can one do with the stuff that's already out there, pretty much, right? These are
Yeah.
the agents that we shipped with. So, yep,
That was
go
the
try it
perfect
out.
amuse bouche before the main entree next time, right? Sorry, if you like marinade, I had to
Yes,
step
I'm
it up one
just
more level.
so
Yeah.
hungry. It's only 8 a.m. in the morning, and I'm starving now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. Thanks everyone who listened in and joined. And we'll, if you're at KubeCon, all of us will be at KubeCon next week as well. So stop by our booth. I think we're in S150. That's the booth number,
Should
and
be
we'll
a big booth. Should be a big one.
Yeah. And I think we have some time scheduled during the week for the demos as well, for the Kagent demos. So if you want to try it out, if you want to see it, if you want to chat with us, feel free to stop by. And any other words, parting words, gentlemen? No?
No, just that this stuff is moving quickly. I didn't like one of the things I want to show is how someone would get started with this, because using the out of the box agents might be great for a Hello World demo, but what you'll probably end up doing is what Peter said earlier, is iteratively working through the class of problems that you're interested in, and having it, you're gonna continue to fine tune the system prompts, the tools that it has available, the workflows that you're able to get through, and then eventually we want the framework to be able to create memory and learn and be able to get really smart. So yeah, I'm excited about what people will be able to do with this.
Yep. And just to answer Hugo's question, how hard, in your opinion, would be to add Kyverno policy coding to agent? Not that hard, but just to give an example of one of the tools that we've created is the resource creation tool for like Istio resources, for example. And that's basically, it comes down to explaining in the instructions on how, like explaining what you want the agent to do, and then giving it some examples of Kyverno policies, how they look like, what is the structure of it, what is the definition of it. And I think that would give you a good start, but then of course you would have to go and fine tune it later. And
But I
you
love
can
this.
add the Kyverno docs to it, and
Exactly, yeah.
and make it real smart about that. Yeah.
I love this. I love this idea. If Hugo or anyone else is interested in doing that, engage with us in the Discord channel, because you could follow a similar template to our own getting started experience, which is Prometheus. Is that the tool that, or the agent that people add? I forget. What's the one that we have in our getting started?
I think it might be Prometheus. I don't.
Okay. Either way.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
so we've documented the getting started experience, but if there's a specific tool you want and like that you want to develop and add and have like an agent sort of in mind, like talk to us in the community. Let's do it. We'll help. And like, if you're interested, we'll help you move forward with it.
for sure. Yeah. And I connected with you, Hugo, so I can follow up and we'll figure something out and do there.
Nice.
All right. Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Thanks for taking the time. And we'll be here probably in a couple of weeks' time to do even more demos. Right.
And the next one, Eitan's going to play that piano. So definitely, if you don't want to see the demo, definitely come for that.
He'll break through that wall, and there's going to be.
All right, hanging out with you guys. Talk to you later.
All right,
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.